Hello, everybody. Welcome back here to our SoCal Hockey Hotline podcast. I'm the hockey manager of Great Park Ice, Dave Walker, along with our other hockey managers, John Meinberger, Vince Vias, and Dean Wilson. Today's episode, we've got special guests. We've got two local California goaltending coaches and mentors to a lot of goaltending youth throughout California here on this podcast. We've got PJ Musico, who grew up in California, played some hockey in the EA, the NA, and the SJ before heading to NCAA hockey with Penn State. After that, spent a couple years in professional hockey ranks before he stepped out and got into the training, conditioning, and goaltending development side with the Orange Lutheran hockey program here in California. We also have Stephanie Yates, who's a 4-year college hockey goaltender herself at Elmira College. Also was a member of the Lady Ducks program growing up. And both now are instrumental in a lot of our youth hockey goaltenders in their continued skill development. And I know in this downtime, in this COVID era, both of you have done a lot of work online with Zoom calls with a lot of goaltenders. And I guess we started off, PJ, we'll start with you. How did that kind of start? What are your numbers like on these calls? And what was your main objective and kind of focus of what you're trying to do with these kids?
First off, thanks for having me on. This is awesome. If I talk too much, just stop me anyway. But the main goal with starting the whole thing was like, okay, well, I'm a coach. How am I going to be able to coach remotely? So it was a big challenge for myself, figuring out the landscape and figuring out how it works. We were able to, luckily, I have enough of a network and I have enough people in my corner where I was able to reach out to a bunch of different sides, a bunch of different other coaches and be like, hey, can we start to maybe develop a community here? And I think that that's something that we've always kind of been missing here, especially in Southern California, which obviously there's going to be disagreements and stuff, but if there's one thing that we can agree on, it's that we love to coach goalies. So the more coaches that we can get on the same page and with similar terms yields to a better product, it yields to better development. I think the end goal really is that with a lot of the older goalies that I work with, they had people like myself to kind of look up to and mentor. Whereas there's going to be a point where, I may not be coaching as much as I am right now. So I want those people that I've been able to mentor to start to foster the relationships with the younger youth. It's something that I went through where I never really had anybody to kind of look up to and be like, oh, okay, he went to this route, and this route, and he had a great experience. Or, hey, he had a terrible experience going this route. Maybe I need to go somewhere else, right? Which we've all experienced really, really good things and a lot of adversity in hockey. So it's fostering those relationships and making sure that we understand that it's a community as opposed to, I believe in this and this is the only thing that's right, because that's just not true. No goalie is ever going to be the exact same. Everybody wants to be Jonathan Quick. Everybody wants to be John Gibson, right? But at the end of the day, nobody's going to be those two guys. You have to come up with your own product and your own development and stuff like that. So that was kind of the end goal with that.
Perfect. That sounds good. So Steph, I know you've done some of this stuff as well, and I'm really working with a lot of the Lady Ducks goalies in the same capacity. Can I touch upon how that's going and what your focus was with those goalies?
Yeah, my focus has always been is getting them in the right zone as far as their development and taking it in their own ownership. I think a lot of times players can tend to be like, well, what am I supposed to do next? Well, a lot of that can be taken up with them. Like, they can really foster their own development as well. It's kind of coaching the kids to be their own coaches, and that's what kind of our philosophy has been throughout this. The training online has been really awesome. PJ's been great to work with, doing it with both the male and the female. And we've been really lucky. Like you said, we've been able to reach out to a lot of different avenues and be able to get different kids, not just actually the Lady Ducks, but all of Southern California on the call, and even some of the Northern California kids.
What's really cool about the goaltending thing is it's a little near and dear to my heart, obviously. People have heard of my in my different podcast segments that I've talked about my son being a goaltender, and I can definitely speak on these two coaches have played a huge impact in who he is now, and just these podcast. I mean, these segments that you guys are doing are just phenomenal. You know, he every Sunday 12 o'clock he comes in and PJ with his group, and he always leaves with a different insight, whether it be about nutrition or just talk about the path and the journey. He always, you know, wants to go and share about their story and kind of find a way how it's going to relate to him throughout his path. So it's a really cool thing, and I can't, you know, thank you guys enough for what you guys do just right off the bat. So thanks, guys. But leading to that is what led you guys to the position early age? You know, I know Walks had his little stint in there. He talks about he played until they started putting the puck off the air, and then he was out of the position. But what led you guys into being goaltenders and getting in front of those pucks?
Steph, I'll let you take it.
All right. So obviously it was a little different. My brother played for some reason. I don't actually know why that started, but it was like a family outing. We would go to Disney Ice, which is now Anaheim Ice, and some goalie quit on an opposing team, mind you, in the in-house league at Disney Ice, and I was like, oh, I'll do it. I have no idea what possessed me. They pulled equipment out of under the stairs on the one side, and I honestly, it was iTech like roller foam equipment. You felt everything. I don't know why I kept going, but I'm really glad that the equipment has come a long way since any of. But I remember my first game. I remember Igor Marinov, which was Dmitry Marinov's son, played, and it was like a huge thing. And he shot it, and it went into my glove. I made the save, but
I love it.
Shot it in
hey,
there.
nevertheless, it was
But
a
from
save.
that point on, yeah. From that point on, I was like, all right, I can do this. And then
awesome.
I just continued to fall in love with it.
Cool. So I guess from both of you guys, from a development standpoint, when you guys are looking at goaltenders and breaking down kind of development and teaching techniques and whatnot, is there goaltenders that are currently playing now that you guys look and watch and to kind of, I guess, better your teaching habits or to add to your teaching kind of handbook of what you really want to push on these kids?
Yeah, I guess I'll take over this one. Like the big thing that I've been working on recently is an actual curriculum and like being able to actually justify why you're doing certain things. You see it a lot where, you know, a goalie coach is working with a certain goalie and they're just shooting a lot of pucks, which, don't get me wrong, there's a ton of value in that. However, if we're not changing and trying to grow and trying to structure things, then that's where like pieces start to kind of, you miss certain steps in the development, right? If we don't learn how to stop a puck on the ice, then, you know, then pucks start to come into the air, then what? Right? So if you miss those certain parts of the development, and it gets way simpler than just, you know, shots, it becomes movement and becomes the way that you see it, the way that you use your eyes, and you guys know that I can get down a really big rabbit hole with all this stuff. But really making sure that the curriculum is good, so we can always fall back on something, and we can change it, right? If it's not working, then we know exactly what's not working, and we can kind of figure that out rather than just, you know, throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and hoping that something sticks, right? There's a step-by-step process, you know, and for that curriculum, I've been working on it for, God, probably like 2 or 3 years now, and it's changing. It changes monthly. But I'm also very indecisive when it comes to stuff like that, and I disagree with myself a lot. But I mean, that just circles back to my science background and making sure that, you know, structurally from a biomechanics standpoint, like it makes sense. If it makes sense from a human movement standpoint, then you take the next step to, does it make sense as an athlete? And then you guys know that goalies move in really weird ways that, you know, anatomically are not okay, right? And very tough on joints, right? So you know, that's where we get into, you know, taking care of your body and taking care of stuff like that. And the biggest thing is just educating parents and educating goalies that, you know, a lot of the stuff that you see on Instagram, you see Devin Dubnyk doing a bunch of stuff. One of his strength coaches posted some ridiculous exercise, and I'm like, hey, 10-year-old goalie, please don't.
Yeah.
You know, unless you understand the why and the purpose behind it, then like, hey, you know, you probably shouldn't be doing the same thing that the NHLers are doing. So it's making sure that we structure it and actually have a purpose and a reason why we're training. So that's where the development part of it really takes place, is just because we need to know why we're doing certain things. And sometimes a lot of people aren't able to justify it. And that's why I want to make sure that, especially in this community where we have such access, and I am friends with obviously all of you guys and a bunch of other people. So it gets to the point where now we're not just educating goalie coaches, we're educating coaches. And I think that that's where the big value is.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I agree, PJ. You know, even me as a coach, I'm always trying to learn on grow myself to coach goalies too, because to be honest, it's a tough position to coach. I've never played it. So, but you know, being able to get you guys and build that curriculum, that's awesome. That's great.
You mean you don't just blast pucks from the blue line at your goalies, John?
Dino, you do. That's for sure.
Oh, you're supposed to go head high every shot. Warm them up.
Dino's got a cannon.
Hey, that's a different question. That's my son.
Yeah. He's
Real
doing that
quick,
to punish him.
Real quick, PJ and Stephanie, even I kind of know PJ's answer, but when you graduate, what were your degrees in? I know that PJ's helps him for what he does now. What was yours, Stephanie?
Business management specialization in marketing.
Awesome.
Cool.
So I know you guys, PJ, we see you buzzing around right now. You know, you go out to show us up, even not in the goalie, you go out there and skate around. How did you guys feel about, you know, young goaltenders being goalie specific at such a young age? Like what's that look like? Or, you know, is it important to try different things before you lock in the goaltending kind of bug?
Oh, how much time you got, buddy? No.
Okay, can we make it short? Can we summarize?
Yeah, you got a minute.
Look, goalie specific is great. However, there's a ton of stuff that translate to goalie specific that isn't hard on your body. And you know, like we kind of touched on earlier, a lot of movements that goalies make is very unnatural, and it's a process. So making sure that we kind of follow, you know, the ADM, the American Development Model, and the long-term athletic development kind of umbrella, we can call it, is, you know, making sure that kids are athletes first. And whether that means, you know, making sure that you can throw a ball, or, you know, making sure that you can kick a ball. It's stuff like that, because at the end of the day, a lot of these kids, you know, who knows how long they're going to play hockey. However, I want them to be able to play hockey forever. You know, I'm in a position now where I'm able to get on the ice, you know, pretty consistently, whether I want to be playing player or goalie or, you know, anything in between. And I'm still able to do that because my body didn't take that much stress from the constant wear and tear of the position. So if you can give yourself a large exercise library, and that might mean you go out and play basketball with your buddies, right? At a young age, making sure that the social aspect is there too, because at the end of the day, we play hockey because we love it. And we want to make sure that we foster that, because I've been in the position myself where it's tough to go to the rink some days, especially the older and older you get, and you're playing at those high levels. It's a grind. And that's probably one of the biggest blessings that I've been telling a lot of the kids that we work with is, like, right now, like, granted, it's a little bit long of a break, but it was a break. And a lot of kids never get that.
Oh, huge.
No,
I definitely agree. Yeah. I mean, the thing is you see a lot of these young goaltenders come in, or just hockey athletes that are coming in at such a young age, and they haven't seen a time off like this. So it's been cool to kind of see them, like you said, they can go play basketball or play soccer or do things. I don't know if they want to take up tennis with walks. I don't know, either one. But reality is they're able to, you know, be involved in, you know, other aspects of just, you know, physical literacy and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
Did we
Right
lose
on.
Steph on accident?
Yeah, I think Steph's gone. She'll be back.
We'll get her back. Brief pause.
Show goes on. So I guess what would be your biggest thing besides when you're evaluating a goaltender, besides just stopping the puck? Like what are some of the main attributes that you're going to look for in terms of evaluating a goaltender?
You know, it's really funny, and it's changed recently, actually, because, you know, now I have a lot of goalies that are at older ages, and, you know, they're talking to junior teams and they're talking to college teams. So, you know, I've been talking to some of my buddies that are, you know, coaching at the Division I level, and I'm like, hey, what do you look for? Like, you don't know anything about goalie, right? Per se. And he goes, the first thing that I look for is, do they look like a goalie? and it was kind of a light bulb for me. It was kind of a light bulb for me where it's like, oh, like for me, it's like, is his positioning good? And, you know, is he on angle, and is he square? And, you know, all of the buzzwords that you hear for goaltending. But obviously, like, you got to stop the puck. And this is something that I've been going back and forth on a lot, because I have a lot of goalies that are really, really good. but they don't perform when they need to. And for whatever reason it might be, I have to be able to sit down with them and be like, hey, like, you have all the tools, but hockey is a performance-based sport. Like, you need to get a result. So at the end of the day, like, what if I'm evaluating goalie that I'm seeing for the first time, you know, I'm going to look at, does he look like a goalie? Is he really enjoying being on the ice? Because if he's being pushed to the rink as opposed to the rink pulling him to the rink, you know, like, that's something that would be a red flag for sure for me instantly. And I know that I haven't really talked much about like actual goalie stuff, but, you know, character, right? Like, are they coachable? Do they listen? Do they want to listen? Do they act like they care? Which, like, granted, depending on the level, right? If we're talking about a 10-year-old kid, you might have to be the person that gets them to enjoy it. They make a glove save, you might need to pump them up, you know, and that might be tough for some coach's ego to like let down the wall and like be okay with being happy with, you know, something that probably wasn't perfect, but they make that sweet glove save and, you know, they're imagining they're John Gibson, and guess what? They're goalie for life. I know I kind of got off the rails a little bit, but, you know, I'm looking for the simple things. Do they love being goalie? Because if they don't, then let's try to like find that light for them. Yeah. And then from there, like, the curriculum takes care of itself. That's kind of the whole purpose is, you know, then we go step by step and we teach them why. Because at the end of the day, and I'm running into this a lot now that I've been doing it for a while, is I don't coach the kids that I used to coach anymore, right? Like, I see them for maybe a month in the summer when they're home visiting their folks. So being able to give them, you know, the blueprint, and when they watch their own film, they can go back and be like, dang it, well, I just didn't see it. That's why I didn't stop it, or something as simple as that. So giving them the blueprint and making sure that the mentorship side of it is rock solid, because I never had the mentorship side of it where, you know, they go through a slump and they lost the last 4 games, you know, and they need to call coach just to vent, you know, like, I want to be able to be there for that on that side.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
So you bring up, you know, a good point. I know for like us that weren't goaltenders, and when we're evaluating players, you know, whether forwards or defensemen, you know, a big component that, you know, we've talked about on many other podcasts has been the importance of just skating. You know, the skating from an in-house to a club, high school level, didn't matter what level it was the importance of skating. So really that one thing, is there one thing from a goalie kind of aspect that kind of equates to what we talk about skating with players that you guys would be talking to goaltenders?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I listened to one of the last ones with Craig, and that was the first thing he said, right? Is, you know, can you skate and do you have hockey IQ? Right. So it's very, very similar. If you think about, you know, goaltending as a whole, like, how much of our time are we actually executing a save in a game, for example, right? Let's say we make 20 saves a game, and that save from start to finish, from the time it was shot to when you follow your rebound, that's what, 4 seconds? So whatever 4 times 20 is, I'm not a math guy. You know, that's how long we're actually executing a save, as opposed to being in position and moving and making sure that we're ready to make saves. So you're skating way more than you actually think. Now, granted, there's ways to kind of cheat it because you understand the game. You know when guys, you know, are able to shoot or unable to shoot. You know when, you know, players are in lanes and stuff like that. So you're able to take rest in those certain standpoints. But at the other side, you know, the puck's on the other end and you might just be hanging out. So skating, yes. To answer your question, yes. Skating is the best.
All around.
Skating is going to be the one factor that will always give a goalie of any level the best chance to make the save.
One of the questions I always ask on one of the podcasts, and I think it goes for both of you guys, but what could you know, you guys talk about mentorship, and I think you guys do a great job, but what would you tell the younger you about either the position or the journey, you know, that these younger goaltenders are embarking on?
Take it, Steph.
Well, you got to hear from you too, so it's a 2-part question. 2 people. Yeah.
Steph, you're on mute.
Well, it's all right.
There you go.
We're back.
One would be to just enjoy the moment. I think I was always worried about the next step. And that's true to life in general. But if I could go back to that point, would for sure be that. And what we just talked about is skating. I would probably increase my skating and maybe some stick handling skills for sure. And then maybe pay attention to what the forwards and defensemen were doing a little bit more in practice and staring up at the lights in the big auditorium.
Yeah, I mean, I'll piggyback off of that because, you know, one of the biggest things when I got to college was I understood our team system better than anybody. And the only reason why is because I had to somehow set myself apart. I had to somehow get noticed, right? So what is that attribute for the young goalie that you are, whoever you are out there? What is it that's going to set you apart? When I was, you know, really, really young, and some of you guys probably already know this, but like I love to play the puck. And I knew that was the one thing that would be able to, one, either get me noticed or get me to stand out, and two, be something that is just another tool in my toolbox down the road. So yeah, it's great. Be the best goalie you can, but you know, what are the intangible things that are going to set you apart from, you know, the person that you're competing with? And as far as the person you're competing with, it's not always just your partner, right? And this is something that I used to do when I was a kid was, you know, just because you're beating your partner at the end of the practice conditioning skate, right, doesn't mean that you're actually working as hard as you can, because there's some guy in, you know, the middle of Nebraska in the cornfields that's working harder than you. So until like you can actually compete at that level, make sure that you don't waste any time on the ice. That would be the next step on that, which a lot of the kids now are with this whole pandemic and everything that's going on with that, is they're starting to understand how valuable the time is that they actually are on the ice. I was very guilty of it.
Yeah,
I was very guilty of it.
Yes, you also bring up a good point. I think it kind of goes back to your curriculum, even for coaches. You know, sometimes coaches get too focused on just offense, defense. They forget about the goalies, and they're just kind of standing there the whole time. I think it's important to include them, right? Kind of like into the stick handling drills or whatever it is, just so it gives them opportunity to grow on those skills. So I think that's something as coaches we're constantly trying to, you know, develop and work on. So.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think that if any goalie or goalie parent says, oh, my kid shouldn't be doing what the team is doing, they clearly don't have a great understanding of team, right? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you know, yes, we are a strange position and we are different, and sometimes we are on an island. But at the end of the day, if your team doesn't want to play in front of you, you're going to have a really, really hard time in this sport.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Both of you guys touched upon two things I know from my coaching aspect when I'm looking at goaltenders, and things that like I don't ever, you know, I let the goaltending coaches that are on the ice with us do the coaching, but there's one thing that I always make sure, and that is that goaltenders are stopping pucks. You know, as a defenseman, there's nothing I kind of despised more as having to go back and get a dump in when the goalie's standing in the crease watching me get my face splattered against the glass, right? So I think both of you guys talked about, you know, the playing of the puck and getting more comfortable with that. And I know, PJ, you work with two of the goalies I've had the last, you know, 2 or 3 years, and they've become very good. And not only good, it's just become more comfortable outside of their crease. And that's, you talk about being part of a team. That's, I think, kind of overlooked sometimes by some of us coaches, is that how important it is for those goalies just come out to stop a puck and how easy it leads into your breakouts and getting out of your zone. So I'm happy to hear you guys talk about just the puck handling and the playing of the puck, because I think that's from a player's watching goaltenders. I think that's one thing I think a lot of young goalies need to really get more comfortable at is.
Yeah. And from the team side too, and this is something that, you know, maybe it happens at higher levels when there's more injuries and, you know, more stress, but, you know, as a defenseman, if that goalie's stopping every puck and setting pucks up perfect for easy breakouts, you know, he's kind of saving your body at the end of the day too, to where now at the end of the game, when it's a 6-on-5, they pulled their goalie, you're going to probably want to block that shot a little bit more because you haven't been hammered, you know, 6 or 7 times in the corner.
And then later on in life, PJ, you can just toe drag a guy on a Friday skate and just make them feel good about themselves while you're just hanging out, right?
All about having fun.
Yeah, that's the truth.
It's true.
So look, I guess for both of you, when you guys are either watching from the sidelines of team practices or on the ice with teams practicing, are there things that you guys watch as a goalie coach in terms of a team practice that you wish us coaches would do a better job at, whether that's timing of drills to give goalies proper time? Is it the shot variations from different angles? With the amount of shots, is there anything that really jumps out from a goalie standpoint that us coaches really could do a better job at in terms of creating our practices?
Yeah, I mean, obviously timing is a huge thing. If they're getting peppered, like we talked about skating, it's not allowing them to do any skating within that drill. And goaltenders have kind of a 3-stage thing where they have to identify what's going on out there, setting up, and then initially taking the shot. So if you're not allowing them to do that during practice, they're literally just puck focused. Obviously, as goalie coaches, we've told them, sometimes you're going to get those drills because the practice isn't always about the goaltender. It's about the team in general. So they have to pick one puck. Obviously, staying safe in net is an important thing, but definitely the timing would be probably one of the main things.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point, Steph. It's just, like, practice will never just be about the goalie. It's not a thing. It's also never going to just be about forwards or just be about defensemen, right? And this is where, like, you start to play with different strategies, right? I had the goalie that was so worried about getting scored on every single puck that we got a ton of reps, but we never got quality reps, right? So there was never actually structure, and there was never actually something that we were working on. So rather than being worried about every shot, and don't get me wrong, I'm not telling goalies to not take shots. So all you kids out there, take this with a grain of salt, is have a really, really good rep. A good rep, that's your game rep. You follow your rebound, you play the rebound, right? Compete. Be the guy that everybody wants to shoot on because they want to get better. In practice, as a goalie, it's your job to make everybody else better. The same way that those shooters are trying to score on you because they're trying to make you better, right? It's a give and take. And the harder you work, the harder they're going to work. And that's where it becomes a game. There's that healthy competition that is then going to translate to the game. But, it's okay to take a shot or 2 shots off and reset for that next shot that's going to be your quality rep. Now, that doesn't mean just stand in the net. Don't get me wrong. I would be the exact same. I know it probably everybody on this call, if a goalie was standing in the net, you're going to put it at their head. Right? Little wake-up call, right, Dino? But, right, if there's an understanding and there's a relationship developed with goalie and coach, and they understand that that's what the purpose is, hey, this warm-up drill, I'm not going to go all out and try to stop every puck. I'm going to have a quality one. I'm going to have one where maybe I'm going to only try to use my stick to meet the save, right? I'm going to try to control, or maybe the next one, it's only rebound control. I'm only going to try to make sure that I handle the rebound. And then the next one, it's like, yeah, sorry, John, but you were the 3rd guy in line and you're just going to kind of shoot, and I'll try to shoo one away. And then I'm going to reset. Hopefully you're, in a better lineup in the next time. Right. But at least we have purpose as opposed to just being a target.
We always talk about on the podcast, we had Ryan Johnson on the other day, and we were, his perspective on coming from California is a little different. He's a little bit younger, and, we've come to see, California players, be successful at whatever level it may be. What was your guys' path coming out of California like?
It was, I started when I was 12, so I didn't really know that there was much until probably my senior year, and I started getting scouted. But for girls, it's obviously a little bit different path as well, even to this day, that we don't have juniors and all this other avenues and pathways. Pretty much to college is the next step. And then I got recruited from various different colleges, and it was really just what was going to benefit me, because especially for California kids, you're going far away. There's really not a school that is super close. So for me, it was really picking the right school that benefited me. I'm dyslexic, so I needed a learning program that was going to support that, as well as a 1 to 20 student professor ratio. So that was something that I really needed. After that, I started coaching in college, and that was, for me, that's where I thought that was the ultimate end game for female goaltender in hockey. But now what's pretty cool is it's, we've got some pro sports now going for women in hockey. PJ?
Yeah, I mean, my path was a little different, obviously, from from the male side, right, is, I went to juniors and I played in college, but I think the biggest thing was understanding that even though I was a very, very good goalie coming out of California, it's a small bubble. And, I was drafted to the USHL, and, at the time, this is a very embarrassing story, but it's a story that I love to share because it puts a lot of things in perspective. Was, I got to my first USHL camp and I wasn't the best goalie there. And that was something that I hadn't experienced. And understanding that you're going to go through a lot of things that are hard, especially as a goalie. There's only 2 spots on a team, and there's only one person that can play at a time, right? So from a competitive standpoint, like, you kind of have to be ruthless, but being able to handle adversity and not see failure as failure, but see it as an experience that you can learn from, right? You get cut from a team. Guess what? Everybody out there, you're probably going to get cut from a lot of teams. You're going to get traded. You're going to get put on waivers, all of that stuff. It's going to happen. Even the best goalies in the world, the best goalies to come out of California, have been waived and picked up and traded again and then back to the original team, right? Some of you guys might know who I'm talking about with that sequence, but, like, understanding that just because you get cut once, like, sometimes coaches are looking for you to see how you handle adversity. Oh, you didn't play 3 games in a row. Are you going to go pout about it, or are you going to prove them wrong? Every time you step on the ice, you have an opportunity to either prove a coach right or prove a coach wrong. And I think that if you can maintain that mentality, it's something that's going to help you down the road and, lead to you being more resilient. So resiliency was something that, I had to develop. I didn't have a choice. If I wanted to play hockey at the next level, I had to become I had to get thick skin. It just had to happen. So I was cut from junior teams. I made junior teams, but my path is very long and my story is even longer.
Awesome.
So that brings to a question for you guys. So both of you guys went through California hockey years ago. When you look back now and you look at what goalies now in California have in terms of facilities, in terms of science background, in terms of the type of coaching, how much further ahead do you think the kids are right now compared to when you guys were going through it?
They're extremely far ahead. I'm still learning things that, like, I didn't have then. I constantly having conversations with PJ, because he even had a little bit more given to him with a 5-year difference. And like, that's just a testament to goaltending in general, is there's constant evolution. I actually have a journal that I've written when I was like 12. It was my hockey journal, and I wrote in it, and you could see like the stand-up, butterfly, hybrid,
Two-pad stack.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that was a drill in my book, like major 2-pad stack, like stuff, I think that it's amazing. And I think that having people, to be able to come back full circle, and help coach them and show them some of the different things. And it's amazing to see that. It makes me smile, actually.
I mean, to be frank here, like, I would say that every single one of the goalies that I've worked with has a better skill set than I do to this day. Like, it's just the way that it is. They're all better skaters than I am. They all, at whatever age they're at, they have a better understanding of the game, right? I was running around just, hey, stop the puck, be athletic, figure it out, right? But from the skill set that they have, like, I could be humble on that standpoint and say that they're all better goalies at their ages than I was, but, when it comes to experience and going through the hard things, like, it's stuff that's really not that related to goaltending is what kind of sets people apart. Whether you want to call it the mental game or you want to call it, the people that are resilient, whatever it might be.
So if you both had, I don't want to put one sport on you, allow you to pick 3, but if you had to break down what 3 sports outside of hockey do you think would be the best transition for goaltenders to help their on ice?
You got it, Steph?
Spike ball.
Honestly, anything that you're doing outside of goaltending, like PJ was talking about, is huge. For me, I loved playing softball, and actually in college I dual sported as a water polo player. It was a bit interesting. Not a huge swimmer.
That's a workout right there.
Yeah. I honestly did it for cross training because your whole body
Oh my goodness.
is just killed. We literally did 2 hours of swimming, and then we went over and did 2 hours of systems,
Wow.
and which is essentially just me treading water for another 2 hours.
No big deal.
Yeah, I by no way was I an amazing athlete. I think my record showed 1 shot on net. But it allowed me to get out of my mind, and really, honestly, that shot was a pass, by the way. But it prepared me for that next year, which actually was my junior year of college, and I honestly played out of my mind, even better than my probably senior year. So it was definitely any sport. I loved football too, but that's a little bit rougher.
I'll give you 2 answers. The quick one, I'm going to say just right off the top of my head, is going to be tennis, right? Because it's a quick push. You have 1-2 steps to get there, and you get 2 seconds to relax, and then you get to react again, right? So it's like it's process, react. Now it's happening a lot more, so it can be super beneficial. The exercise physiologist in me wants to say anything with a projectile, right? Anything where we have to process information and understand like distances, understand spatial awareness, and like where our body is in relation to that stuff. Like granted, like play goalie in other sports, sure, like of course it's going to help, but I think you could probably argue with just about any sport that it's going to translate in some way.
Cool. Well, that's good. I mean, there's a lot of good information that you guys have in. And I think one of the big thing that kind of resonated with me was when you talked about the why, because I can't remember if it was Craig Johnson we had on or Ken Martell, but one of them, I can't remember which one, but they talked about the why of, for coaches, why are you doing a drill? Like what is the purpose? And I think that kind of speaks volumes too to when you're doing one-on-one training, whether it be in a lesson environment or a team environment, is why are you doing it? Is it you doing it because it look good, or is it doing it because it's beneficial?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the why is the reason why you should always be doing it in the first place, right? Because, and this is something that, and this isn't to call out some of the old goalie coaches or coaches that I've had, is like, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten the answer where it's like, we always did it like this. So this is why we're going to do it. Yeah. Right? Like think about old school football strength coach mentality, right? Oh, well, when I was playing, this is what we did, so you're going to do it. Where it's probably not the best answer. And if you can't justify why you're doing something, then we need to be doing it for a purpose.
Yeah, I think it's cool how you can just see the mentality shift, the fact that you're trying to answer those whys, I think that, it helps in anyone's development. I mean, even now in any kind of workforce you're at, as an adult, you want to sometimes get those whys as well. Like, it just helps with, processing the information and coming up to that resolve. So, I mean,
and I think as coaches, we can all, as we answer the why, it means we've learned something and we've grown as a coach. We've now added more info to our, our kind of book of knowledge, and then we on to the next why. So I think every time we answer something, it helps us.
Yeah. It's really easy to just kind of regurgitate information that like you think but once you're able to like teach it and justify it, that's when you're like, whoa, okay, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Like I
definitely
know that it's right, but why?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, everyone, we're at that time again. We always end our podcast here with the same question to our guests. So, Stephanie, I'll let you go first. If you're going to go golfing, we want you to pick your perfect foursome. It can be dead or alive, athletes, non-athletes. You're one of the foursomes. So you got to pick 3 and give us who you pick and why.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Eddie always says on our podcast, we know if you've listened to any of the other ones before, because if you weren't ready for this question, then you might want to review some of the past podcasts.
No, I wasn't, and to be completely honest, I don't even know if I'm right-handed or left-handed in golf.
I like it.
That doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, geez. I probably would pick a bunch of goalies. Nikolai Hobby Bolin, growing up, I watched him. Let's see. Probably Quick. I just want to know. Marc-Andre Fleury.
Cool.
And yeah.
That's it right there.
Good.
Well,
PJ?
mine will only have one goalie because my idol was Patrick Waugh, so I would want to golf with him. The other two would probably be Bill Murray for sure. Caddyshack's my favorite movie. Has been forever.
That'd be so. That'd be good.
Which that would be a riot. Probably Arnold Palmer would be the other one.
Oh, I like that.
And then probably Gene Wilson.
You know.
He can drive the car.
I like
Get him
it.
someone doctor hat.
You need someone to break 100, right?
Hey, don't worry, Pete.
I mean, the other way, the upper way of 100.
We can set that up. You and Dino, we can make that work. The other ones I don't know about.
Yeah, I want to tell both you guys, PJ, Stephanie, we really appreciate you, coach. As a coach, I'm sure all these I speak as the same as these guys too, because when I grew up, there wasn't really goalie coaches. Your goalie was just your goalie. But I got taught when I first started coaching like 26 years ago that I asked the coach, how do you pick a team? What do you look for? He goes, you build from the net out. You know, you want to have a good goalie, good defense, and the other stuff will come. So I appreciate what you guys do because obviously what we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, I just, you know, Walker, John, Vinny both could say the same thing. I don't know how to teach a goalie, you know, so really appreciate what you guys do.
Yeah, I definitely have to piggyback on that real quick though. You know, I definitely appreciate you guys, you know, for all the things that you guys do. You talk about mentorship, you know what I mean? It's just huge to have, you know, these young goaltenders to have people to look up to and to, you know, to lean on a little bit through their journey and all the things that they're going through. I speak on behalf of the Rinks, but not only that, as a parent, you know, you guys have been super influential on my son and, you know, on public record, you guys are awesome. So thank you so much for everything you guys do.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm gonna say thank you for your guys' support because, you know, without coaches like you that are willing to listen and are open-minded and we can pick each other's brains about stuff. You know, it's all about the relationship at the end of the day. Like, I don't care how good of a coach you are if you can't, you know, have a relationship with other coaches and kids and make sure that, you know, we keep California growing in the hockey community. So you guys are doing amazing. Obviously, I've been friends with all you guys for a while, but really appreciate the work that you guys do.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it. Well, thanks for hopping on here and giving us a little insight into the goalie mind and the goalie everyday life. I know we've got a lot of customers out there that will get a lot of benefit out of listening to what both of you had to say. So we really appreciate it. To our viewers and listeners, thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this week's podcast with our goaltending duo of PJ Musico and Stephanie Yates. Until next week, stay safe.
See ya.
All right, thanks, guys.
Signing off.